right now. Oh, continue. All right.
Okay, I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, did we lose Tim?
I see a Tim here still.
I see Tim. Tim, are you still with us?
Hi, I am here. Can you
Good.
hear me now?
We can hear you.
I'm trying to unhook everything. Technology, like I'm in the city. You'd think that Bell would work, but I only spend about $400 a month, so you can't expect it to work for that price. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see you. Really appreciate everybody coming on this call today and celebrating the dads, the uncles, the father figures in our lives. We appreciate all the work and effort that you do with the fathers and the men in your organizations or in your lives. And we're fortunate enough to have several esteemed men and fathers and leaders in our community on the call today. And we'll get to them. We'll do introductions and stuff. But first, I think it's amazing. And Nathan, thank you so much for coming on. I've seen you once before. You probably haven't seen me because I was one of those just faces in the chat room on the Zoom call last time. But welcome to you. And Nathan is going to do an opening for us today. And I don't know what it is either, so that's kind of exciting. So I'll turn it over to you, Nathan.
Awesome. So it will be a surprise for everybody, including myself. I love surprises. So I was asked to do, first I'll introduce myself. Wache, Tanse, Anin, Buju. My spirit name is Sound of Thunder. I'm from the Wolf Clan. My English name is Nathan Naview. I'm the Cultural Resource Coordinator here at in Timmins at the Timmins Native Friendship Center. I've been there for about almost 2 years now. I started about 2 weeks before my child was born. So my daughter's going to be born. She's her birthday is, yeah, she's going to be 2 this year. Sorry, I just got home like maybe like 20 minutes ago, rushing around everywhere. And yeah, so it's a pleasure to be here. It's my second time appearing with the CAPC, and I'm honored to be a part of this and to, share what I'll be sharing with all these awesome men here that are in your communities. And, it's an honor for even myself as a father to be a part of this with other fathers and other, uncles and stuff like that around here. And yeah, it is a big role for each and every single one of us to to be that father figure, that man in everyone's in all our families' lives, right? So it's I'm very honored to be here. So I'm going to be sharing a song here to open up as well. So when we do our songs in our in the indigenous culture, it's a type of praying. So what I was taught growing up is that when we sing and we drum, it's one of the highest forms of prayer. It's just like that in many other different types of cultures around the world as well. When we sing, it's one of the highest forms of prayer. So for that's how I will be opening up this event with y'all, and I'll be sharing this gift with y'all. And yeah, hopefully the audio doesn't get all chompy as last time. I did fix my my mic settings compared to last time. Last time I kept on cutting out. So if it cuts out again, I am very sorry. Yeah, when I'm singing, I have like no way of stopping. So I'm hoping it goes well. Hopefully it doesn't cut out as much as before. So I'm just gonna be singing a welcoming song. Hey, hi, yeah, hey, ah, way, hi, yeah, hey, ah, way, ah, hey, ah, hey, hi, yeah, hey, ah, hi, hi, yeah, hey, ah, hi, hi, yeah, oh, way, oh, hi, yeah, hey, ah, hey, hi, yeah, hey, ah, hi, hi, yeah, oh, way, oh, hi, 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 no. Yeah, that's a welcoming song. Something that was it was a song that was shared to me quite a while ago. Sitting on some of the traditional drums over the past 10 years. So yeah, so it's a welcoming song. Means-
Awesome.
yeah, a lot of different meanings behind these songs. So in general, it's welcoming everybody here, and a big thank you to the creator and all that stuff, and for all the stuff that we do.
Well, thank you so much, Nathan, for welcoming everybody, getting us started, setting the tone. And I'd invite you, if you're into it, like you can stay on camera, feel free to chime in anytime you want. Anybody else who wants to go on camera, go for it. I've never been a big fan of rules, so let's just have a good time today and learn some stuff and enjoy ourselves. One thing I thought is important to mention is, to me, in the work I do, CAPC, CPNP, Aboriginal Head Start, with stupid adult rules, you get lost in stuff. And I think it's always important to remember what we're here for. And what I'm here for, and we're all here for, really is children. So, you're talking about moms, you're talking about dads, fathers. Oh, everybody forgets about fathers. And it's true, but the focus really needs to be on kids. And if getting fathers and men and uncles involved in children's lives makes their lives better, which there's lots of evidence that shows that it does, then we ought to be doing that. But again, the focus should be on the kids, not on all the crazy adult stuff. Having said that, I'd like to introduce our panel members, or let them introduce themselves, because I'd probably screw it up. And I'll just go in order of what I got on my screen here. I got Randy Budd there with a nice background. It looks like, I don't know, you could be in Hawaii off in the bush or something.
I just want to see my mess of a house. Ani, everyone. I'm Randy Budd from Native Child and Family Services. I'm an assistant supervisor now. I was the Shishe, which is uncle at here for over 10 years. And we grabbed a hold of Super Dad, Super Kids and converted it into Circles of Fatherhood. And we've been running that program now for a long time, and I have to admit it's gotten to be pretty successful. And I've been involved with Dad Central for many moons, and have been enjoying that. And I'm a father of 4 beautiful children and 1 amazing grandchild, Lulu. So just a little introduction, and miigwech everyone, and thank you for everyone being here. Miigwech.
You got a grandchild. That's amazing. Like I'm hoping I have to wait a little while longer, even though I got 2 boys. 1 is 20 now, but I'm just kind of hoping, just wait a little while longer, because I'm not that anxious to.
It's a beautiful thing.
But I am somewhat jealous, I got to say, Randy. And we don't actually know each other, so that's kind of fun that we all get introduced at the same time. Next on my screen is Roberto.
Hey, good morning. Thanks, Tim. My name is Roberto, and I work with Horizon Community and Family Services here in Kitchener-Waterloo. And I'm fairly new with the position, but I've been working with families for quite some time. I'm also an ordained minister in Cambridge, and I've been doing that for 5 years. I started our own church in that area. I'm also, my background is in social service from Fanshawe Colleges. And I've also, I'm a graduate at the, actually I'm working towards my degree in child and youth as well at the University of Wilfrid Laurier. So I have 2 kids, one is 11 and my little girl is 9 years old. Had a birthday just yesterday, and her whole theme was a Selena theme. If you know anything about Selena, the Spanish Selena, the Mexican pop, we all dressed up as different characters in that theme party yesterday. So grateful to be here with you guys. So honored to be here, learning from you guys as well. That's me, Tim.
Thanks, Roberto. And it sounds like you're serving the community in many ways. And I like the Selena thing. I never saw the movie, but I think J-Lo played Selena in it, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. We'll go over next to Peterborough, Mr. Jason Brock.
Hello, as Tim said, I'm Jason Brock. I work with the Peterborough Child and Family Center. I've been here for over 20 years. I'm a father of 4. They are 27, 25, 13, and 9. And also I have 4 grandchildren as well. So always lots going on. And yeah, just very excited to be here. I've been involved with the CAPC CPNP coordinating committee. I'm also involved recently with the Dad Central steering committee. So very excited to be here. Welcome, everybody.
Amazing too. I can't believe you got that many kids and you've got grandkids and you look like definitely way younger than me, but good for you. Go over to Drew, Dad Central. Oh, he can't unmute himself. Is that what's going on there, Sydney? I don't know.
Yeah, I might have missed making Drew a co-host. So one moment, please hold for technical.
Well, he did say in the pre-show that he might say some controversial stuff. So
he did. Here.
Maybe he's censored.
It could be. It could be.
I have censored Drew. Drew, it should work now. Let's check it out.
There we go.
All right. Hi, everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thanks to everyone for joining us for a father-focused event. I think that's exciting to see. So my name is Drew Solyen. I'm the director of Dad Central Ontario. I've been involved with the organization since April of 2019, and then I think I stepped into this role as the director starting in November of 2019. So I am a dad. I've got 3 beautiful children, twin daughters who are 8 and a son who is 5. And so in terms of, I think my role has been to really take the wealth of resources that Dad Central had amassed over the years of work and really try and build some channels of getting those resources out to many more people and supporting the work that CAPC and CPNP projects do to support families, and in particular with a focus on supporting fathers in their ability to be positively involved in children. And so it's been a real privilege to be able to be involved with that. Prior to that, I had started a group called Connected Dads, and so it was designed to bring dads together in sort of a community so that we can strengthen and support one another to be as actively involved and positively involved in our children's lives. So that still sort of happens on the side, as well as then I have another pseudo full-time job, which is where I'm a coach as well. So anyways, a real privilege to be here, to be part of the panel, to support Dad Central, to support CAPC, CPNP projects, and really just further the conversation about the value that positively involved fathers bring to children, Tim, and that's why we're here. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Drew. And for those of you who don't know Dad Central, hopefully everybody on the call does know Dad Central, but there are a lot of great resources there, a lot of great trainings and stuff that go on. And if you feel like you need resources or training, or there's actually webinars that are coming up, the Public Health Agency does fund Dad Central Ontario, not as much as we should, in my opinion, but we do. And they do some great work, but they also partnered recently with Dove Men Care. So Drew and Dr. Vibe, Ed Gock are doing a series of discussions that are coming up. So if you haven't seen any of those webinars, don't know what I'm talking about, you can email me, you can email Sydney Bell or Drew. Maybe at some point we can put their addresses up in the discussion box. But there's a lot of great stuff that's going on in terms of dads in our community. Yes, and I'm reminded, and Sydney's just posted that now, if you do have questions for the panelists as we go through, you can post them up in the chat and we'll ignore them. No, we'll try to answer them as best we can. And I've got some questions for these guys, and they've never seen them. They have no idea what I'm talking about, and there's some hard questions, so I'm just going to launch right into them. The first one is more from a personal side, and thinking too, like it's not just dad, it could be male role models, guys that have been in your lives. What do you think it means to be a good dad? And what was it like growing up with your dad or the men in your lives that made a difference to you? Like, what did you like? What did you dislike? Why don't we open it up with that? And I don't know, Randy, again, you're at the top of my box. If you want to start, go for it, or if somebody else wants to chime in.
Well, I'll chime in just because it's really my biggest male or dad role model would have to be my mom. My dad wasn't in my life, and at this point in my life, I realized I don't need to have a pity party about it. But really, my strongest parental guidance and my mentor, the person that I model myself after, would be definitely my mom, who was my father and my mom for like all my life. And, she really had a great influence. I did have a male role model that was, my brother-in-law. His name was Robbie Mentis as well. So if there was an actual male who complimented my mom, was definitely, was him. And he, inspired many things for me to kind of just as I was growing up to be who I am today, which is a caring, loving, and an amazing dad, I feel. Not to toot my own horn or pat my own back, but those are kind of the things that I tried to instill into my kids, to be loving, caring, have trust, build on good relationships. And, I'll stop there because I could really keep going. But, Miigwech, just to start off.
Oh, it's amazing to try to contribute to your children's lives in a positive way. And nothing wrong with patting yourself on the back, man. Most people on this call are probably parents, and it's a pain in the butt. It is. I mean, there's nothing richer. There's nothing I've loved more in my life. There's nothing closer to my heart and everything. But it's also very difficult. So nothing wrong with patting yourself on the back.
It's how I run. Sorry, not to add one more thing. It was definitely how I ran all of my groups, right? With that understanding, that caring, that compassion. I brought it to each of the circles of fatherhood. And I feel, not to go into further question on down the list there, but it's really what made the guys come back, I feel, was that relationship building. But we'll get more into that after.
Excellent. Sounds good. Roberto, what about you? What is it mean to be a good dad to you growing up with your dad or the men around you? Like,
Yeah.
what did you like? What did you dislike? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, my dad was always a hard worker. When we migrated from El Salvador, we went to California. I lived there for about 2 years, and then we moved to Canada. But my dad was always working, being new into the country and stuff like that, trying to set a tone for the family. My dad wasn't around as much, even though he was there, but he was always working all the time, right? And growing up in a Spanish home as well, there's this vibe of, being macho and not crying, and toughen up and all that stuff, right? So growing up with my dad, I knew he loved me. I knew he cared about me and cared for all his kids and my mom and stuff like that. But you never heard that. He never expressed it either, right? He always took care of us. He always provided. He always did the things that dads should do, but he just never did that. So I think to be a good dad, you gotta incorporate all aspects. Like, for example, you gotta include you gotta take care of the mind, the body, and the spirit of the soul as well, right? You can't just be the dad that just provides. As long as I'm providing for you guys, I'm a good dad. It encompasses everything, the emotional care, right? So growing up, I wasn't that close with my dad in that regard. It wasn't until we moved to Kitchener that I started getting involved in our church community, and my youth pastor pretty much mentored me, pretty much guided me, coached me all along the way. I owe it to him because he was the one that kind of kept me grounded throughout my teen years, and so I wouldn't go crazy in my teen years. But it was really him. I owe it a lot to him and the mentorship that he provided me. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, because you're seeing stuff from different men in your life, from your dad, the work, all the stuff he's done, and I think it's typical of guys, like a lot of guys, me in my life, whatever. Like, my dad never said "I love you" ever,
Yeah.
and in the later years, I did tell him that, and I tell my kids all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's like kind of like a Randy thing. Like, I'm trying to do the best I can do, and I'm not holding it against him. It was just where he was at and where and I'm like, what, let's try to do that, because I wish it was there a little bit more.
Yeah.
Why don't we go over to Jason for your thoughts?
I think it's really interesting that we're talking about that, because I was thinking about this as well as the conversation's unfolding here. One of my male role models was my grandfather. I never had a really good relationship with my father. My father was very abusive and battled with alcoholism. So my male role model was my grandfather, and he was great in a lot of ways. He was a very patient man. Liked to show his grandkids very unique experiences, fishing and camping and things like those. So those were really positive experiences and unique experiences for me. But there wasn't a lot of communication, especially around anything around emotions. So there was that piece that was missing for me growing up. So I wanted to make sure that was something that I instilled in just having conversations with my children, asking how they're doing on a regular basis. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing for me of what it means to be a dad, is to be patient, but to also be open for conversations, both having conversations and open to conversations that they want to have with you. And so it's almost like this lifelong learning experience with your children in terms of being a dad. Obviously, there's no manuals. There's a lot of trial and error that happens. So you got to give yourself a little bit of a leeway to kind of learn as you go. So I really enjoy that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important, obviously, to be there, but also to be open. Some of the stuff I've said to my kids, like, I'm a weird creative person anyways, but I'm like, you know what? You kill somebody, come to me. You want to have sex with somebody, you got drugs, whatever, I don't give a shit. Come to me, we'll talk about it. And you try to set that, and it's funny because often, and kids change because when they're little, of course they'll come to you. Then the teen years, then they start going to their buddies. But I find just being there and having them realize, you know what, you can talk to me. I don't care what's going on. Because sometimes they won't come to you, or my wife is like, oh, he never says anything. But then once in a while, suddenly it's like, boom, here's what's going on in my life. And it's kind of wild. You got to just sort of be there for that moment when it comes. Drew, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks. All great sort of different aspects that have been shared. So from Dad Central's perspective, when we do our training, we say, well, we don't necessarily good dad. We say, an involved dad is somebody who takes intentional interest in the care and well-being of their children. And so that intentional interest is great. But to me, I think in order to be a good dad, the core of what I think I'm hearing a lot is you have a relationship with your children, a healthy, wholesome, enriching, nurturing, fun, engaging relationship with your children that ultimately provides what the children need so that they can grow and flourish and become the people that they've sort of, that's within them. And so to me, that's the core of being a good dad, is you are relating to your children at their age and stage and needs. And that means that you might change. It might mean you'll have to grow. It might mean you'll have to adjust your approach and styles. And I think that to me that's the essence of it. We heard Carrie Casey at the national conference have a very simple model of what, and it's loving, coaching, and modeling, right? Those three principles, if you want to summarize it, that's probably a quicker way to say that what I said, right? You love your children, you coach them, and you model, you show them the way. And so I think that's, for me, what's really powerful. If we look at, and people have shared their stories, my story is that I had a dad who had some personal struggles, and that resulted in the breakdown of the marriage relationship, and then also he made a really poor choice, and he abducted me as a 3-year-old, and so for 4 years I had this sort of childhood trauma where I was taken from my mother and without her, and so that's a pretty traumatic experience from 3 to 7, and so. Randy, you talked about your mom. My mom is my hero, but I also recognize now that my father, has some issues, but he still loves me. A couple years ago, with that abduction experience, my mom, she kept meticulous records and documents and had things. I saw a card that my father had sent me when I was 10 years old, and in the card, he's writing this, basically affirmation of his love for me as his son. And as a, almost 40-year-old, I broke down. I just broke down in tears, because I don't think you ever escape the need for the feeling and sense that your father loves you. And so that's why I'm just so passionate about this topic, because I think there's a huge void when you don't have that sense of a father's love. So anyways, I'll stop there and we can move on.
Yeah, and it's wild for everybody on the call, like Drew's story. When I first met Drew a few years back, and I read on his website about his story, and I was just like, I read it, and then I read it again because I was like, wow, this is a wild story. And I think everybody does have stories where their lives come from, and the fathers, and you think like Roberto's dad, there's a lot of stuff going on there. You're moving from another country into America, into Canada. You've got, you're trying to support your family, take care of your family. You got changes and racism and all this stuff going on. It's wildly rich what goes on in people's lives. And, and interesting too, Drew, like you had mentioned the loving, the coaching, the modeling. And of course, I'm a football sucker, so I love that guy. And one thing that made me think of too, Dr. Jean Clinton, a child psychologist in Canada, she said the most important thing for a child is that they feel felt. Just your presence, you're there. And you're not perfect, nobody's perfect, but they know you're there and they know someone is there. I guess just to flip the script a little bit, I'm curious, and to those of you, I'm jealous, who have grandkids, I'm curious what you have learned from your children. Like how did their view of the world or their just being in your lives, how did how did your children change your life? What have you learned from your kids? Why don't we go back to Randy?
Tim, just sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure you are aware that Nathan has been able to join back to on the panel, so he's part of the discussion. So,
Oh, cool.
just so
All
yeah,
right.
I wasn't sure what you were seeing on your screen, but
I'm looking at virtually nothing. I'll be honest with you,
that's what I
Sydney.
kind of thought.
I've got like 4 little boxes, and then I have my questions
Right.
coming up. So
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. So just so you know, yeah, Nathan has been able to join you back.
well, why don't we jump to Nathan with that? I don't know, Nathan, do you have kids? I can't remember.
I'm full of surprises today. Sorry about that. Yes, I have one child, a daughter,
Oh.
almost 2 years old. So
That's right.
we're currently at the stages of mountain climbing on every little everything, no matter how tall it is. So it's a little nerve-wracking at the moment. Just to answer your question there from your first question there, I just wanted to say my role model. I consider myself one of the lucky ones. My father was present, and so was my mother. My father, I describe it as breaking the cycle. He was on the run for a really long time. He wasn't at home. He got kicked out. He was abused, all that crazy stuff. He was in and out of jail. He considered himself a cold-hearted man. He hitchhiked from Ontario to Saskatchewan for work, as well as running away from the police. So he was one of those wild child people. Like he was out and about, like constantly running and hiding. He was, like I said, like he was considered a cold-hearted man, had no emotions, very, very set in his ways. When he went to Saskatchewan, he ended up finding my mother up in northern Saskatchewan, and I guess she was the one that kind of set him straight, helped him in his path, calmed him down, and I guess in a way retaught him life, how to treat people, how to treat himself specifically. So growing up as a child myself, I've done a lot of outdoory stuff with my family, specifically my father. I'm the youngest of 4, so I spent a lot of time with my dad out in the bush, mostly me. So by the time I was growing up as a young one, he already changed his ways. But throughout the time we would be out in the bush, he would always be sharing about his crazy past, all these nasty things that's happened to him, and he'd always reassure me that he's a changed person, right? And so what he teaches me are the things that he wanted to do that he couldn't do. So he learned from his mistakes, from my mother, right? So they're both my heroes in my life. They're the reason why I'm the way that I am today, right? So I give all credit to them. They taught me what a relationship is, you know. My father was a masculine dude. He wasn't a very big guy, but he was masculine, but he also was very emotional. He wasn't shy to share his emotions. He wasn't shy to say sorry. He wasn't shy to cry once in a while. And every time things like that would happen, he would always, share why he would do that stuff. There was times where we were out in the bush, for those people that have gone hunting or trapping or even knitting, sometimes it could be a little hectic out there. Very, very fast paced. And I remember growing up quite a few times where he was pretty much swearing and yelling at me. Like a part of that old beast kind of popped out once in a while, and it would be lots of swearing, lots of name calling, not directly at me, but like kind of like the things that I would do. Then I would cry, of course. I was very heartbroken, but maybe about like not too long, maybe a minute after, he would come up to me and say his sorries, hug me for quite a long time, and kind of reassure me that like he was sorry. And the way that my parents' relationship was is it was a very close, and it wasn't like specifically, I'm a man, I do this, you're a woman, you do this. It was a very interchanging roles, I guess I could say. Like my mom would do certain things, like let's say hunting. My dad would probably, most likely, they would both go out. My dad would shoot the moose, and they would both work on it together. usually you would see the men doing most of like the heavy lifting, but my mom was there side by side with them, carrying, picking up all that stuff. So I learned how to do a lot of that stuff at a young age, and I'm very fortunate that you know, being an Indigenous person, I got to see that stuff. A lot of even on my mom's side of the family, she was abused quite a lot beforehand, before my father too, right? So she learned all that kind of stuff. But you know, just as my mom helped my dad kind of helped my mom after a while, right? So I give everything to those to my parents, and I'm following in their footsteps, but not completely, right? You know, I'm the way that I interact with my child is a little different from the way that my parents would interact with me, right? So I do a lot with my daughter. Like we do everything together. When we go singing in places or we go to ceremony, I always try to make sure my daughter is present, having fun, doing her own little things, right? As well as we kind of watch her as well to make sure that she's not really hurting herself too much, like you know what I mean, like kind of not hovering but kind of hovering. But yeah, so I try to be as engaged as I possibly can with my daughter, because that's the way that I was taught too, right? To break that a certain cycle of masculinity. You know, I'm always there for her. You know, I'm there in the mornings and in the evenings. I'm the one that puts her to bed because I love doing that. I love singing to her to go to sleep and stuff like that, right? So that's something that my parents taught me. So yeah, my daughter teaches me a lot too about the small stuff. When I do presentations on parenting, I started doing traditional parenting teachings now, because I've been introduced to ceremonies, parenting ceremonies. So I kind of share that stuff. And one of the main things I like to share is the teachings that children give to us. You know, as adults, we forget the small things in life, right? And when we have our children, they get so pumped up and so excited over the smallest things. And that's one thing that we forget as adults, is that the small things in life are very big. So that's what my daughter teaches me.
That's awesome, Nathan. Often thought that 5-year-olds should run the world, because if they're supported and they're, you know, at that age, they're pure and they're like, yeah, is this fair? Should all these people get this and these guys get nothing? No, that shouldn't. Like, they could literally run the world and probably do a better job. And very cool, I thought too, that your dad, you know, you described his early days and then meeting your mom and the amount that she did for him. And I kind of feel like on this call, that's what everybody does. It's trying to help people, trying to change people's trajectory for a more positive way. It's an amazing story. Why don't we go back to Randy? And I guess we'll stick with this same topic, or you can go wherever you want. But
the same thing, eh? I have to admit that, you know, when I was younger, a young dad, and I had my 4 children, you know, and I took over the role, you know, when their ages were 1, 2, 3, and 4. I really thought for a moment there, I was like, what am I doing? And I remember the first day, all the kids were, Daddy, 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 Daddy. And I was like, whew, okay, well, here's the TSN turning point right here. I'm making lunch. I think it was a lunch. And I'm like, you know what? From this moment forward, I don't think I'll have this thought in my head, right? Where, okay, do I want to do this? Should I do this? It was always very concrete in my head that these kids, I love them, and they will change who I am and what I am. Because in the early days, I was more of a authoritarian, and it was more kind of where my mom taught me, right? So this is what, you know, these are the rules. This is how to do it. Men don't cry, right? And this is how it is, right? You're the man of the house, and that's what you are, Randy, right? And I never got that glory of being kind of the man of the house when I was a young boy, just because it was just kind of implied, right? This is who you are, right? But I still didn't have the, you know, that ability. Well, I did have that ability with my kids, right? So, but I'm altered, right? My kids altered me, right? And because I used to listen to my kids, and I took teachings all throughout, and I worked in our community, and it really altered me as a person, right? To the point now that, you know, the tears do not stop now. So when I need to shed a tear, you know, I do cry, and I'll cry in front of my kids. My kids will see that. You know, me and my oldest daughter, we watched a movie one time and we literally were bawling at the end of it. It was a very, you know, sad story, but, you know, it was just a great moment. I feel that I remember with my daughter that she was able to see me cry, and I had a empathetic moment towards someone else. And even though it wasn't like a real, you know, thing, it was the movie, and we were both crying, and we just hugged and laughed at each other, right? Because it was just a great moment, you know. And as we got older, or as my children got older, and myself, it was just a great thing because I could really, you know, turn to my kids and take a moment and just stop and look at it and look at my children and say, you know what, here, this is what I need to do at this moment. And it only brought my children closer to me, right? Having that relationship that I built over the years where I was able to adapt. Because I feel if I kept going down that path of, you know, my mom's way where, you know, there's restrictions. And my mom meant the best. She raised us on her own. She did her best with what she had. I can now take that piece from my mom, from my children, you know, from all the teachings from everywhere I got, you know, both at work and everything, and just really make a wonderful moment, right? With my grandchild who's, getting a donut before mommy gives her a donut, you know, and that's a wonderful thing that, we went to Timmy's the other day. My daughter's like, Daddy, can you get a donut for Lou? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, well, I want to try it for the first time. It may or may not be the first time that your daughter's had a donut already. She's like, Daddy, really? You took that moment away? But yeah, that's that moment where, you take all of your teachings and everything and you're just trying to pass it on and be as positive as possible. Go ahead, Chicken.
Roberto, what are you thinking there?
Yeah, our kids know us. They know us inside and out. We can't be fake with them. And since I wear many hats in the community, right? I play different roles. As whether I serve as a chaplain or whether I'm in my career as well as working with CAPC, they've taught me that you can't be fake, man. You can't be fake. You got to be yourself. Because at the end of the day, the kids don't care which hat you have on. They only see the dad hat, right? And that's how it should be with our community when we're out, when we're serving our community with the organizations that we work with, right? We got to be ourselves, because when we fake it, we cause more harm. If I wear my minister hat only on Sundays, right? Or I try to wear my minister hat with my kids, my wife's the first one going to tell me, take that hat off, right? You're not my pastor. And the same thing with the kids, right? The kids know. So they've taught me just to be real, man, to be a man of integrity, to be the best person that I can be inside and outside, right? Maybe it's a little bit harder to unpack, but yeah, man, just try to be real.
No, your kids definitely will tell you right away if it's not ringing true for them, which is great. Like, why not? So you kind of forget, like once you turn 6 years old, then you forget, you start becoming an adult. Again, back to that 5-year-old running the world. Jason, what about you? What are you thinking?
I was thinking about something that resonated me with what Nathan said. It was interesting when you were talking about being out in the bush and getting, there was some swearing going on and things like that. Because I recently had a family member ask me, how come I didn't know how to fix a car? You spent all that time with your grandfather. My response was, the only thing I learned from that was how to not hold the flashlight correctly and be yelled at. So in terms of like trajectory, as I mentioned earlier, I was a very young dad. I was 18. So it was kind of an interesting experience because I suddenly realized I was responsible for a whole other person other than myself. And I had to realize, because the partner I was with at the time was kind of spiraling very fast in a negative way. So I came to a realization that if I was going to be able to kind of pull myself out and change my trajectory and my children's trajectory as well, I was going to have to leave the relationship. So that was a very hard decision that I had to make. But it ended up being positive. in terms of like something that I've learned from my children, the biggest thing I can contribute in terms of things that have not already been said, of how unique they are unto themselves. So my interests are not going to necessarily be their interests. You know, they're a very unique person unto themselves. Give you an example. My daughter recently asked me, she wanted to learn to go fishing, and I hadn't been fishing in about 20 years. So it was kind of like, well, I guess I better learn how to fish again, because I hadn't done that in so long. But it was something that she was interested in, and it wasn't from me. It was something that she had developed in her own personality. So they have their very own unique personality, and that's a big thing and a very interesting thing on how that unfolds and how you can support that.
Drew, what about you?
I think two things I've learned from my children. One is a greater sense of empathy. So recognizing, you know, when you have these young children as they're growing, their needs for emotional understanding of them, right? And I have my agenda, I have my ideas, I have my thoughts, but then I also realize I have my own emotions and what's going on with all of that, and how do I help my children through it? So learning empathy as an important skill is something my children have taught me, as well as the idea of just wonder and joy. And so, meaning that children see new experiences that for me are like mundane, the usual, whatever, but they see things, especially if it's for the first time, with this sense of wonder, of joy, of awe. And I think what that's done for me is it's taught me to, you know, take a step back from the ideas, the thoughts, the pressures, the stresses, the, you know, the agenda again that I have, and to see the world with a new perspective and new eyes, and to be able to then say, how can I embrace that perspective, embrace that time with them as we go through this, so that I can, you know, kind of maybe revisit some of the things that, you know, that maybe I didn't get to experience as a child because of my own childhood trauma and my own childhood, you know, the things that I need to do to cope. And so, I mean, I guess the third thing would be to recognize how much there was still in there. So that's the other thing I've learned from my children, is that there's stuff that you haven't actually dealt with, Drew, but now because you have kids, it's being brought up again. So now what are you going to do with it? So they've, you know, the way that I say it to people is that if you ever want a personal growth experience, become a parent, right? Because you can't help but grow.
Well, kind of cool how kids not only keep it real, like Roberto was saying, but they keep you in the moment. Like, you know, it just rained, there's a bunch of muddy water, let's go walk through it. And as an adult, you're like, come on, that's messy, that's it. Weird story, but it just popped into my head. Years ago, I was lucky enough to go to Hawaii, and we knew these people who worked in film and TV, and we're sitting there on the beach, and I'm talking to this woman that I don't even know, and her husband was a surgeon over in the Iraq War at the time, and her kid is playing in the water, and he's got jeans on, so is getting filthy, like the jeans are wet, and I'm just like, you know, it's just bugging me. I'm like, how can you, you know? And finally I said something, I'm like, how can, like, what are you like letting this kid do that for? Like, and she actually said, well, I'm dying. I got about 6 months to go. And she was probably, I don't know, 40 maybe, but I'm dying of cancer. I'm going to be gone, and I just don't care. And I thought, wow, like, obviously the perspective, like, it shook me, because I was like, okay, I had no idea. But just that idea that live in the moment. Like, I think that is something you can definitely learn from kids. Like, what you get, and it's hard because as an adult, as we all know, you got so many responsibilities, so much stuff going on, but it's raining, like, just walk outside in the rain and let it fall on you, you know, like something you don't really do as an adult much. I do want to shift gears and get into some other questions about engaging and working with dads, but I thought maybe I should check in with my boss and see if there's anything on the chat that we should address, or
I assume that
Or a
means,
poll in?
I'm sorry.
I assume you're speaking to me.
Yes, Sydney, I am.
Hi. I am still here, just enjoying listening to the wonderful sharing that's going on. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, just appreciation for what our panelists have said. Yeah, potentially there's maybe a poll question we could do if that seems like a good time to do that. We have a few. We could, it's sometimes interesting to know who is in the audience. So we have a poll here that I'll launch, inviting people to share what role that they are playing, and we'll just so if people could take a moment to let us know, what is your current role? Are you direct service, home visiting, program manager or coordinator, peer educator support? If you choose other, feel free to put that in the chat. And we'll just give another couple of seconds for that, because we'll maybe ask another question about father programming before going on with the discussion.
Well, it's actually a good segue, because you've got looking at what people do, what their role is in working with fathers and families. And I guess we can circle back to Nathan. I'm wondering about engaging and working with dads. In your day-to-day life, do you work with fathers? What do you do? What do you find challenging? I don't know if you can speak a little bit about, and I don't know you, Nathan, so I'm not sure that you actually do that, but if you do, could you talk about your work with fathers and what your thoughts are?
Yeah, for sure. I do work with fathers in different ways. I'm a part of 2 different programs here at the Friendship Center. Well, I'd like to first start off by saying I stick my nose in everyone's business here at the Friendship Center. It's one of my roles here to ensure the cultural safety and all the programs and stuff like that. But there's 2 specific programs that I'd like to talk about. One is called, we have a program called Kije Anishinaabe Nin here at the Friendship Center. It's, well, this thing keeps on popping up right in front of my face. Let me move that. Let me kind of keep it down. Yeah, Kije. So it's just pretty much like a bunch of fathers are men who need some, I guess, assistance and I guess dealing with certain things. So we do it like a circle style, right? We sit in a circle. We talk about teachings. We talk about masculinity. We talk about a whole bunch of things. We allow the people, the men that sit in that circle to kind of talk about their lives, and a lot of it does stem from traumas from like parents and stuff like that, right? So we do lots of things like that, and my role in these circles is to kind of share certain teachings. As a young man myself, it is a little awkward at times, not for myself, but for some of the other attendees of these circles, because I am a young person, right? And but I have picked up a lot of knowledge through my years of going to ceremonies and stuff like that, of how parent relationships and relationships in general. So I like to share a lot of those teachings, right? Specifically the 7 grandfathers. That's the one that that helped guide us through these programs, and I like to share a lot of that. These teachings. And when I shared this morning about the young, about children, of how they are, they're teachers to us as well. I really like to share that, because a lot of the men that are in the circle are usually parents, fathers, sorry. And the other program that we're still at the very beginning processes of this. It's called Daddy and Me, I think it's called. So we invite the fathers and their children as well to come into our programming, and we do. We're talking about doing crafts and such like that, like crafts with the kids, and to get the father and the child to do the craft together. We share teachings. We just have like a regular sit down and stuff like that. We're still in the beginning processes of that, and but we're still trying to figure like the best way to do something to do that. But so far it's been pretty good. Yeah, that's most of my programming is usually parents, but like I said, a lot of my teachings revolve around relationships and parent and child relationships. So I do lots of sharing and stuff like that, even at my age. I just, like for me growing up, and I just like to share those kind of stories, right? So I don't know if I answered that question correctly.
There is no correct. Thank you, Nathan. No, that was great. Randy, why don't we go over to you, talk about some of the work you do with fathers. Like, what do you find challenging? What do you like about it?
So one of my biggest challenges was actually working at a child welfare agency where I'd say, hey, come to my group, Circles of Fatherhood. And, those same fathers have just experienced a very negative experience with maybe one of our workers and kind of didn't want to come to our program just for that reason. So for me, it was finding a location to, or working with those dads one-on-one to try and hopefully work them through it, that I was not a part of, that piece. I was there supporting them and making sure they felt and building those positive relationships. So that was kind of like one of our biggest challenges is working through that, and then just making sure that when they did come to our group, they felt comfortable and, and had that open space where they can actually take a few moments to talk to us and it'd be, a good positive experience for them. So that was kind of our biggest challenges. But we actually have programming that's available away from our main hub, which is very influenced by child welfare, and but that's kind of where we're going now. And it's our agency as a whole is moving in a really good positive direction where we're trying to implement and change right from the top down to the bottom. And make it a more support agency, right? And instead of that old age colonial way, right? So and I'm kind of really happy to see those changes happening. It's slow, but it is a process that's going in a good direction.
Yeah, it's great, the idea of support versus like a punitive, oh, they're never going to be good parents, just take the kids away. Like,
Yeah.
because most people, even, whatever, you're an incarcerated dad, you get out. Most people, if you say, do you want your life to be good? Do you want to be moving in a positive direction? Do you want to be involved in your kids' lives? Most people would say yes. They want to contribute. They want to be, doing something good with their kids and whatever. So it's better to support that than just to like take the kids away.
And those timelines don't work when you think of the old colonial CIS ways. 6 months to a year, is just not reasonable. Not when you think of the trauma, the intergenerational trauma and 60 scoop and just there's just no way. There's no way. You can't. Okay, we're gonna fix this in 6 months, and like you said, incarcerated dads. I can go down. There's a big list. But you try and stop that in overnight. No, it's not going to work, right? That the whole system has to be revamped. And, there's a few things that we are, doing that can, alter that and change that. Like I said, though, it's just slow going and it needs to move a little faster, but that's my opinion, right? So.
Well, it's good to have good people working on positive solutions to stuff, though, that's for sure. Yeah. And Randy's at Native Child Family Services Toronto, for those of you on the call who may not know. So it's great that organization's moving in a positive direction and supporting folks. Roberto, what about you? What about your work with fathers?
Yeah, so I'm fairly new in the field, so I probably have the least experience out of all you guys right now. But I've been working for about 6 months and working with dads, running their Super Dad, Super Kids program from Dad Central. Now, Dad Central is not paying me to say this. This is coming directly from me, okay? No endorsement or anything like that. But I even remember in my interview when they were asking me questions like, how would I engage dads? I came up with things off the top of my head, like, some of the things that you would see in Super Dad, Super Kids, like the different lessons, knowing absolutely nothing about them. It wasn't until like a couple of weeks into the position, I found out about Dad Central and the program. And then when I went through their profiling and went through the training and looked at all the resources that they had, I was like, this is it. This is exactly like I was connected with the program, with the Super Dads program. So we've been working with that. We've been launching that. It's still fairly new. It's something that our organization hasn't really done big on, right? But it's heading in the right direction where we're working on engaging dads a little bit more. And I'm just glad I have those resources. Another thing that I even promote, again, they're not paying me, is Family Man, which when I attended the conference, the Dad Central conference, I took a workshop and they were talking about familyman.movember.com, something like that. Look that up. But it's a good resource as well to engage dads on the day-to-day practices, and it's very interactive. It's funny. It's geared towards from dads. So those are resources that I'm just passing on to my clients as well, right?
Well, and great for you, Roberto, for starting. Like you start the programming and it's like, how's it going to go? I don't know. You adjust, you use the resources around you. And and Drew's just shared the Family Man Movember link if anybody wants that. Why don't we go over to Jason, get your thoughts on working with fathers, what you find challenging, or any thoughts you have.
So I could talk about some of our programs pre-COVID, just because COVID's kind of put everything. It's been discombobulated. We've had to try to transition to virtual. Hopefully we'll be going back to more in-person programming really soon. But pre-COVID, we used to have a dad's program. It was called Me and My Dad. It's an open drop-in style program for dads and their children every Saturday morning. It was well attended. We offered breakfast as part of that program, which is always kind of a key part of what's made that successful. One of the things I enjoyed about that program was just the camaraderie that would happen and mentorship, I would say, amongst the dads. So it's one thing for me as a staff to come in and talk about all the kind of the developmental pieces and around child development and relationship pieces, but it becomes much more powerful if dad to dad, when a dad sees another dad struggling with even a baby who's not quite settling, and he comes over and says, here, I tried this hold, this seems to work when I bounce like this, and just those kind of one-on-one conversations that are so much more impactful for those relationships. And I think it's big because it kind of levels the playing field. It lets those dads know that somebody else is out there and they're going through kind of the same things as a new dad. One of the challenges, the other side of that in those programs, is just kind of keeping the ball rolling in terms of having conversations at the program level as to how we're going to still be engaging dads on a regular basis in programs we haven't engaged in. For example, our CAPC CPNP programs, which are very much geared towards the moms in the program, and that's rightly so. So one of the ways I've kind of tried to combat that, being part of those programs, is when those dads come in, often very young dads, is to just say, hey, how are you doing? And have a conversation about how their role in the relationship has such a big part of what they do. Things like a mom who's trying to breastfeed, the biggest successor is going to be how encouraging her partner is. So letting him know that he has a big part to play in this as well. And I think those are kind of big things.
Well, and I agree with you completely, Jason. Like, one thing I hear all the time in programming or from talking to people is peer-to-peer support. And I think, it's true of any sort of programming, because, none of us wants to feel alone. And if you're a guy and you're like, I don't want to go to this thing, and you go and it's a dad thing. But like you said, hey, I don't even know how to hold the kid. Like, this is crazy. And having that peer-to-peer support, don't worry about it, man. Just do this. You're going to do it. It's fine. Having that support is so essential. Why don't we go back to Drew and get your thoughts on working with dads?
For me, I guess the greatest enjoyment I get is knowing that I'm working towards a significantly, I'm going to call it a greater purpose. And that I believe that when you have positively involved dads, we have the ability to change our communities. We have the ability to change our cities. I believe we have the ability ultimately to change like our culture and our society. And so, to me, it's a longer term vision that I'm working towards, and I enjoy the fact that I know and I believe that when we have more positively involved dads, we have more dads engaged, that we can begin to make shifts in the culture that need to be made, and that I think we'll see healthier people, we'll see healthier families, we'll see healthier results. And so it's a long-term vision, and I enjoy the fact that I believe we can have an impact, a positive impact on our world by supporting and engaging dads. In terms of the challenge, well, not everyone believes that, and not everyone supports that, and not everyone, and that for we have a lot of people who have painful pasts with their own father, and that pain causes them to, rather than see where we can do better, it causes them to resist, and it causes them to not embrace it. And it's delicate, it's sensitive, and pain is pain, and it's real, and it has to be worked through. Otherwise it can become quite detrimental. And so I think that's the other challenge. Like, I mean, we've got a history of dads who haven't been good dads. We've got a history of men who have hurt people, and so we've got a real challenge to sort of work through those things.
So getting these poll things popping up.
Yeah,
Are you
sorry,
ready?
I hope it's not intrusive.
Yeah, oh, that's okay. It's interesting though, and you're right, Drew. I mean, things have changed quite a bit, but in some ways they haven't changed at all. In terms of, I mean, I know one of the biggest growing demographics right now is lone parent men in Canada. So you've got to look at ways of working with and with supporting men, or I would hope you would, because otherwise, the future's not going to be as good as it could be. I'm wondering, there's a bunch of other questions I want to get to, Sydney, but I believe we had some giveaways and stuff. Should we do that now? Do you want to do that later? I think I had suggested a brand new car. I'm not sure if we got that, or if it was something a little more modest.
Oh, sure, too. Well, we could wait maybe a few minutes. I do have a couple questions that had been brought forward from folks in when they registered.
All right, well, why don't we get to those? I do have one important question that I want to get to as well. But and interesting too with that last poll, and Randy commented, I think it was 70%, maybe was the final result of people who currently have a program working with dads, which I think is terrific, because it's definitely growing. It sort of used to be an afterthought, oh, you have a dad in your life as well? Okay, that's good, because you're always going to think about the moms, which is great, and you should. But neat to see that number going up with the number of folks that do have some kind of programming going on for dads.
I've been around for such a long time that I remember, we used to say, okay, guys, what dad programs are out there? And it was a struggle. It'd be like, we're trying to do this. And oh, guys, we're really working towards this. It was usually in conjunction with a mom's program, right? Even our own agency had a program called Mommy Matters, right? And that was a parenting for both parents to come on. And we're like, guys, so we've really come a long way to, to have these. And when I see that number, that was just fantastic. And I don't mean to, make a yay or nay, but when we think of where we were and where it is now, I think that's fantastic, right? And just where we support anyone and everyone, right? Let's move in that direction is really what I'm trying to say. And it's good to see that we have finally for both.
Well, and interesting too, your comment on, oh, well, it's hard to reach men, like it's kind of a barrier. Well, then, but that doesn't mean you should ignore half the population. Maybe you should try harder, try a different way. Like, yeah, we were trying to get moms, but moms just don't want to come. Oh, well, don't worry about moms anymore. Then we'll just, if you flip the script, you would never do that, I don't think. Yeah. So Sydney, what do you, did you have a question that you had in the chat that you wanted to throw up on the table?
Well, first, there was a question from Lee around, do any of you have a story to share of something you learned from another father or another father that you were inspired by? And then we have a question about sort of navigating dads in breastfeeding spaces, and then co-parenting as well. So those are the three things kind of on the table right now. But starting with maybe Lee's question around if one or two of you have a story of being inspired by another father.
Anybody want to jump on that? Oh, we got Drew jumping out there. All right.
Yeah, I'm part of the John Maxwell team. So John Maxwell is an author and a speaker, and most notably known for leadership. And so since about 2011, I've really just consumed all of John Maxwell's content, and he has been very much a mentor to me. And so one of the things that he says is that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so that's really just been a fundamental aspect for me, is that, you know, I want people to know how much I care. And then ultimately from that place of being able to build a connection and a relationship from a place of caring, then maybe if there's shifts or adjustments or things or growth that can occur, let's do it built off a common understanding of care. So that's been very transformational for me. And I share it because it's how I practice my coaching. It's kind of how I practice the work that I do. And parenting primarily in particular as well.
Wonderful. Anyone else?
I can jump in there in terms of some advice I got from a father was really interesting. He said, you know, there's always going to be a spectrum of advice on any given topic, from, you know, the positive to the negative, and it can be quite a wide range. So it's always good to find credible sources, but also just trust your instincts as well. You know, you're gonna do the best you can, and you as a parent, and this is true of a lot of parents, they want the best for their children, so that's a good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jason. And just in interest of time, there's, like I said, a couple of questions here. Shall I go ahead and share?
Yeah. You want to? I was thinking you wanted to tackle breastfeeding and co-parenting. Do you want to get a couple answers from that as well, or?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the breastfeeding one is amazing to me. Like, I think of Europe, where, you know, it's not a big deal. It's just part of life. You're going to get a glass of water, the kids being breastfeed. Whereas here, it's kind of like you don't realize, like, there's this odd thing where, okay, yeah, breasts can be sexualized. I see that, but we're talking about a baby eating here, and that's all it is. But I remember my wife being at a mall, and they had an area where, like, soft chairs, whatever, and she had a big, like, blanket over, but she's feeding the kid, and somebody's making a comment, and I'm glad I wasn't there, because if I was there, I would have gone ballistic. It's weird to me, though. I mean, it's a glass of water you're eating, but what is the breastfeeding question? I'm probably not even answering it.
Here's the context, or what they've written. We have several CPNP groups that we run. Most of them are women-only groups for attendance, as we acknowledge some women prefer it that way. They don't feel comfortable discussing certain topics or breastfeeding with guys present. Any suggestions on how to engage dads in this situation? Or should we be rethinking our structure for women-only attendance with our CPNP program? So I know it's a big question, but if there is any thoughts or reflections or wonderings around it, I'm sure they'd be appreciated from the panelists.
I just wanted to say, if I had the ability to breastfeed, I would say to that, right? Yeah. And, you know, I would have, you know, loud and proud, here, I'm feeding my kid food, nums, right? What you want to put in there, you know, and that's what it. I don't know if that answers the question, but
well, and I don't know that there's. Oh, Drew, hi.
Yeah, I think what I hear in that is, you know, many times organizations struggle with this idea of father friendliness versus dads only. And that this sounds very much like, how do I become, or how does this program become more father friendly, possibly? And so father friendly could include something that's simply, you know, the participants, maybe those participants who aren't comfortable, maybe they can have a separate program, or maybe they can split the time. I mean, there's lots of different options, but it's really just how do we move in the direction of being a little more father friendly, as opposed to we don't have to have dads only, and we don't have to make our current participants uncomfortable,
Right.
but how do we move in that direction to father friendliness? And again, everyone's context is slightly different, and there are some principles around father friendliness, and that's kind of the core of our My Dad Matters training. But I think it's great that they're asking the question. It's just what's an idea, or we even source it from other people. How could we be a little more friendly to fathers in this situation to at least have them feel welcome?
Thank you, Drew. Well, here, let me launch into this other one. This is around co-parenting. The one issue that comes up repeatedly with our moms is co-parenting piece and communicating with partners in a manner that supports dad's engagement while gaining understanding and respect for their respecting roles in the household. So many moms report feeling they're alone in their parenting. So I'm looking for strategies to better engage the dads and encourage the positives for how they're already engaging. So this is when the parents aren't together, I would presume. Like often when talking about co-parenting, we're talking about when the parents are separated but still looking to partner in raising children.
I'd love to hear what one of the panelists says on it. It drives me nuts though. Again, what's it about? It's about the kids. So focus on the kids. And it's sad, but when people split up, it's like, I hate you, you hate me. It's like this power struggle, and you forget, oh, you know what? All this power struggle and stuff. And of course you have emotions, right? You got to work through them, but you got to come back to, we have to take care of this child. So me and my ego, I have to try to remove it as best I can, because otherwise the needs of the kid are not going to be met nearly as well as they could be.
So does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
So Sydney, can you just repeat the core of the question?
I can. So looking for strategies to better engage dads when they're in a co-parenting situation, so not together with mom, and encourage the positives for how they're already engaging.
Okay, I think I see Nancy just also clarified in the
Good.
in the chat. So thank you, Nancy.
Okay, because I made an assumption there, and
Sure.
she's saying it wasn't for parents who separated.
Yeah, moms are still with the partners, but not feeling like co-parenting.
Thanks,
Co-parenting is supported. Yeah. So we've got in our new dad manual site, we've got some great resources around kind of this whole new period. And I'm assuming this is probably for new parents, making that assumption, even if it's not. What I think is affirmation of what's a dad is doing well is a great starting point. So rather than looking at the negative or they're not doing this, not doing that, help the dad feel comfortable and confident. Because what we know from research is that dads want to be involved and they care deeply about their fatherhood role, but they kind of lack the confidence and some of the skills. And so start with maybe supporting and building some confidence. Hey, what's the one thing that the dad's doing really well? Acknowledge that. Hey, you're doing a really great job here. I really like this. And then it's about, well, what's an area that maybe he can come in and support a little bit more? And so, hey, what's an area that you're interested in as a dad? Like, what do you want to do more of with the kids, or where do you see yourself being more involved? Again, almost asking the dad for input as opposed to dictating or demanding. Sometimes that the natural reaction, I think most people, is like, I have a need and I want that need filled. And that's fair. And that's totally understandable, because quite frankly, parenting is the hardest, most challenging job you'll ever have. But it's also the most important. But being able to work together is one of, I think, the most important principles. And working together always begins with recognizing the strengths and the values of that other partner, and then helping bring them along. Again, back to this idea of how do you connect? I go to your world first, and then I connect with you there, and then I help bring you along together with me to my world. And so, again, it's just more of a principle, and I think that's really, really a nice starting point. Affirm the dads, acknowledge what they're doing, and then ask them for some help and support, where they would like to be involved more. Just a thought.
Yeah, building on strength is always good. It's a great point.
Thank you for that. And my apologies for kind of mucking up the intent of the question there, but you soldiered through. Awesome. Thanks for clarifying, Nancy. I see that Randy got booted off, but I think he's back. So you're welcome to join back on the, he is here. Awesome. Well, we are at 12:23. So unless there, Tim, did you have any other anything else on your mind you wanted to discuss before we ask Blanca to join you on screen, and she's got the questions for our
Well, I do
giveaway?
have 15 more questions, so I'm hoping everybody can stay on the call for another hour and a half. I don't know, there is the one question I did have that was unanswered. Well, there's a bunch, but one I was going to say, although it's great, like 70% of folks on the call are doing some dad stuff, but what advice would you give to staff who have plans to initiate programs for dads within their project and find it challenging? I don't know if we have that question or have time for that question, but if we do, I'd love to touch on it at the end. Why don't we, I don't know, flip over to Blanca quick and go from there.
Do the thing? Sure. So Blanca, are you, I hope you have the ability to go on. I think I have given you the, no, she might not. Here, let me just give everybody the ability to unmute themselves and start their video.
Awesome. I like that free-for-all approach.
Yeah, for sure. So Blanca, you should be able to unmute now and come on camera.
Okay.
There she is.
Thank you.
Hello.
Great
Hello.
panel. Thanks, everybody, all of you. Such great sharing, and thanks, Tim. He's always great with this. He's our MC. We love
Yes.
Tim.
Great job.
I'm not quite Dr. Vibe, but I do my best.
Well, I don't know why you always say that, but he's always great. Okay, so we have a couple questions for our giveaways. I'm gonna post it. And the first to respond is the winner.
Right.
So
And based on your chat, Blanca.
yeah, so I'm gonna post it now on the chat. And it's, can you share a father involvement resource you have found helpful in your work with dads? So the first to post, Dad Central.
There you go. So,
Julie's smiling. Yeah, so Aaron, if you can send your information to Sydney.
I think I know that Aaron, so I think I'll be able to track her down. It could be a different Aaron, but if it's the Aaron I know, I've got her in my sights.
You do know me. So.
I do know Aaron.
Okay. Are we going to do the other one?
Yes,
now?
and just a reminder what the prize is a copy of the book 40 Fathers, Tessa Lloyd. So what we will do is have that shipped directly to our winners. So we have one more chance.
Which, in fairness, that book came up from the father involvement conference. So that's directly stolen from Drew's mind and all the work he already did. I'm unabashed. I got no problem saying that.
Oh,
Thank you,
well,
Drew, for that lead.
I think a general thank you to Drew and Dad Central on this topic. Absolutely. There's no doubt of the important work that happens there. So yes, many, many gratitudes. So Blanca, you have another question?
So the next question, I'm posting it. What is an activity that dads in your program find is the most favorite?
It'd be interesting to see what people have to say. Okay.
Eating together, April.
April
Lepore. Then we got action-packed activities, circle of fatherhood, supporting moms. Awesome.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thanks, Blanca, for that, and for everybody for participating. And so I guess, Tim, I'll hand it back over to you for any final wrap up thoughts and gratitude to our panelists.
Yeah, it's kind of a killer. I'd like to ask another question, but these guys talk so much that we'd be on until 1 o'clock. So, no, but in all honesty and from the heart, I really appreciate everybody getting on the call, like, and heartwarming to see as Randy had observed that 70% of the people were doing something with dads. I'd love to see that at 100%. Like if you need some tips, you saw some stuff in the chat, or, take any lead from other folks who are already working with dads. Because, if we all work together, I think the lives of children in our little corner of the world can be better. So that's really all we're after. So let's keep the good work. And thank you so much for coming on the call. And I really appreciate Nathan, Drew, Jason, Roberto, Randy, you guys for sharing of your time, your stories, speaking from the heart, from your mind. Really great to have you. And I appreciate the work that you're doing in the community as well, because, it's funny in this pandemic, I'm amazed, like FAC is focused on the pandemic and doing the border and quarantine sites, and all the stuff you hear on the news is all our fault basically. And yet our projects, and all of you on the phone, people are distributing resources to help people with, facts on COVID and how to, should you get vaccinated, should you not, where can you get it? Some of our projects are even doing vaccination clinics on site. And I think most importantly, helping the most at-risk folks in our community. So when you hear about, okay, we're focusing on these postal codes, well, that's really who CAPC, CPNP are there to serve. So we're serving the most at risk, and whether it's CAS involved folks or, all the stuff we were talking about on the panel, it's so important to serve the most at risk and take care of those children and those families that need it the most. And you folks are doing that work. So, thanks very much. And thanks for being on the call, and thanks for all of you for your time and efforts.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks,
Take
Drew.
care.
Thanks, Daniel. Great talk today. Good job, everyone. Sydney,
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you.
It was great.
Yes, thank you all.
Have a wonderful afternoon, and hopefully our paths will cross again soon. And thanks, Tim, for leading us through. That was awesome.
And thanks to Sydney and Blanca, because this wouldn't have happened without you guys and your, leading the way. So thanks very much.
Cheers. Cheers.
Thanks,
Take
everybody.
care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a good
Happy
one.
Father's Day. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Thanks.